Yeah, I think it's important to get somebody local bidding on it. So that, the outside contractors aren't just throwing big numbers at it. If they get it, they get it. If they don't care.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Darren.
Hi, Dee. Yeah, Deb Plum. Hello, everyone.
Morning.
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 We're going to have some other people that are still going to join yet. We're having to send them the agenda so that they have the link. We're kind of running a little bit behind in here, and that's my fault. I'm sorry about that, everyone. So, Dee, you're still going to run the meeting correctly
Right.
from there. So,
So can I go ahead and start?
yeah, I'll be sitting here still admitting some people.
Okay.
And then we have paperwork that you'll need to sign tomorrow when we come in for our budget meeting.
That's Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday, then. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's call the meeting to order. The Jefferson County Board of Supervisors, and we're making the best effort we can to do things virtually, which is in some ways a virtual paper challenge. But let's get on with it. Do we have a motion to acknowledge the minutes? And there's two different ones, one from January 4th and one from January 5th.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 4th and January 5th meetings.
I would second that motion.
Okay, any discussion?
No?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next agenda item, discuss proposed emergency management communications levy. And I put this on first so that Chauncey would be here with us. There have been a lot of meetings happening, and especially the last month since this has come up. Again, there was discussion last February, March, and then things kind of slowed down after that time. And so then it was brought back the first part of December. And so after doing a lot of talking with internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, getting our legal opinion, I put together a summary, and I'm just going to share that because it's easier than try to go through the whole thing. I've tried to provide the best summary as to where we are today. And this is a discussion item only. I'm the representative to the Emergency Management Board, but I want to make sure my counterparts are on board with what we plan to propose tomorrow night. So Susie and Darren, your opinions are quite welcome. The county wants to work with the city, and the county recognizes we represent all residents of the county. And Lee Dimmitt, if you are listening, these comments are based on new information since you worked on this. There have been several discussions with stakeholders, including the mayor, city administrator, emergency management, and the sheriff, and the county attorney. I've also had some feedback from some people from the public. There are two issues that are closely related. Number one is the proposed emergency management communications levy, which is on the agenda for that meeting tomorrow night. The second issue that's closely related is the 2080 agreement between the city and the county, which details shared expenses for the building and dispatch services. Currently, dispatch employees are funded by the city, and dispatch equipment is either divided 67% county, 33% city.
Yeah.
And some building expenses are 50-50. And then third, I'm going to close with a proposed solution.
Good. We're
See if
having
yours
our
will
board-
mirror and mine won't.
Okay.
Let you go.
Okay.
Don't hate nothing.
All right.
I'm sorry, Dee, this is Chris. Can you please tell everybody to mute themselves or and Darren mute
Yeah,
them?
that's what I was just gonna
Please
do.
and thank you.
The phone people seem to be,
You can mute them, Darren, as the,
that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
So
sorry,
if
because we
they
can't
need
hear
to
from this
speak,
end.
they'll have to, I'll unmute them at a point when we have some discussion that they need to participate in.
Okay, for those of you who just joined, we're talking, and this is a discussion only item about the proposed emergency management communications levy that's on their agenda tomorrow evening. From the county's perspective, the advice from the county attorney who has researched the law and talked with other county attorneys that it's a poorly written law with too many unknowns. And his advice to us is that the county not support the emergency management levy, communications levy. Legal opinion with an emergency services communications levy, there are too many unknowns, and this levy would have the same effect as a general county levy, but the process would be subject to a legal challenge with more risk to the county. A general services levy would have the same impact, but with less risk of litigation. The perception is that the county and outlying towns paying for Fairfield employees would be difficult to explain. And this has come very fast. Typically when a new levy is proposed, it has a lot of time, and we want to make sure the public's aware of this. And so we don't feel comfortable with voting on a levy tomorrow night that the public doesn't know about. The second item that I mentioned is a 2080 agreement between the city and the county. This will need to be renegotiated. The city administrator and I have worked through the proposed emergency communications levy budget, and I am hopeful that we can work together on other issues. Currently, dispatch employees are city employees, and as I previously said, the equipment is budgeted by the county and building expenses are divided by the agreement between the city and county. Some are 67-33 and some are 50-50. So the proposed solution would be that yes, dispatch services need to be provided, period. For several years, the current system has worked. The city is asking to implement the emergency management communications levy. The legal opinion of the county attorney is not to support the levy on Tuesday. Our proposed solution, that the county provide dispatch services. It's more transparent and the county already budgets for the equipment. Services would be provided through the general fund levy, which is spread to all county residents, and it's more transparent. The starting date would be July 1st, 2021. And the bottom line is that if the county provides dispatch services through the general service levy, it spreads the cost to all county residents, and it's more transparent. We will continue to work on the rest of the items in the 2080 with the city of Fairfield. So Chauncey, would you please make any comments you want to?
Thanks, Dee. This is a complicated matter that Dee has kind of lined out here. And I think one of the fundamental concerns that the county has with this proposal is the rapidity. Something is usually better done right than done fast. And I think the county has some great concerns about how fast this has been proposed and moved on by the city. And based on some concerns about how well publicized and how well anybody may know about what's going on at the Emergency Management Committee meeting tomorrow, as well as concerns about the structure of that authority, whether essentially if a emergency management communications levy was authorized, the tax would be applied to all Jefferson County taxpayers the same as a tax levied by the Board of Supervisors. However, it would be outside of the purview of the supervisors, as well as open to a number of different types of challenges to the legality of that tax. This has been considered and in some ways implemented in other counties to varying levels of ill effect. I think Des Moines County has some substantial issues that they're involved in right now, as well as Mahaska County. So I've had a lot of conversations with stakeholders on this matter. Frankly, the 28E that's been in place was signed in 1971 originally. Seems like that has worked pretty well since that time. The county the city last year wanted to make some changes to the structure of that agreement. And as a member and voting party to that 28E, they of course have the right to do that. However, the county has some, I think there are some legal stumbling blocks to some of the proposals here. So thanks, Dee.
Thanks, Chauncey. Any other comments, questions, Darren, Susie?
I don't have any. Susie?
Neither do I, Dee. Your explanation was very good. Thank you.
So you're on board if I move forward with this plan tomorrow night?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody that's attending? Okay, don't see any. All right, we'll move on. Thank you, everybody. Meet with county engineer, Scott.
Yes. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Scott.
Right.
They have been doing more additional blading of predominantly snow and ice. And for equipment maintenance, a lot of that due to having been working on the roads. They put new bits on the snowplow and on 2 graders and new tires on a grader. And then they've been cleaning equipment up. There were some signs that needed to be reinstalled or repaired. A lot of those knocked down by ice. People might not realize that when their mailbox might be down, that ice is thrown. When ice is thrown, especially off of a snowplow, it's a lot heavier, that usually denser than snow. So it doesn't come off as a powder that blankets things. It comes off as projectiles, more or less, that can hit signs and mailboxes. So anyway, they've been repairing signs, been doing, well, as far as snow and ice control or salt and sand quantities, the mix bin was pretty well emptied. The mix of sand and salt was emptied pretty well in the last 2 events. So it's full again. They've mixed up our existing salt with new sand, and more salt has been ordered because now we're somewhat low on salt, but they've ordered, I believe, a couple 100 tons of that. The gravels are still mostly icy. Hopefully the warmer temperatures this week will help break it up. We got some highs in the mid 30s to lower 40s for about 4 days. Looks like coming up, including today. So, with the warmer temperatures and us still working on blading of the snow and ice, we're hoping that that'll break that ice glaze up better.
Okay, any questions for Scott?
I don't have any.
I don't have any either, Dee.
All right, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
All right, next item, meet with Rebecca Johnson from the Fairfield Public Library. Welcome, Rebecca. Thanks for the detailed report that you sent us.
Rebecca, I'm going to post up the report here so that we can all see it.
Okay.
Let me.
And are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
All right, one. Sure, there we go.
Well, it's been
Everybody
quite a
seeing that?
year, as you all know, and we've had some significant changes here in the way we deliver services. We're actually delivering all the services that we did pre-pandemic, but we've just had to reinvent the way we deliver them. We're doing an average, we're offering an average of 61 curbside deliveries per day, per business day. And it varies, you know, some days it'll be in the 40s and some days it's in the 90s. We've also switched over from doing our programs in-house to doing them on Zoom. That was a little bit of a learning curve, but we're doing it. And we've had a huge amount of appreciation from patrons who drop us notes in the book drop and you know, send us cookies and chocolates and things. So it's been a neat year in some ways, because we realize that some of these things we're doing now these new skills will stand us in good stead when COVID goes away. We'll be able to offer hybrid programs, for example, instead of just to be more inclusive, instead of just doing them in-house. We've put things into quarantine, and everything that we've done is with safety in mind for the public and for the staff. I'm going to ask you to scroll ahead, Aaron, to the next page. This is a kind of a status report of services that we're offering. And the book clubs and roundtable discussion groups have continued. We are serving more people who are visually impaired or have mobility challenges using our Books by Mail program, which we do through the post office free of charge, coming and going. Alex McCunis is our new youth services librarian. He jumped right in and found ways to keep his programs going online, and he's interacting with children twice a week in his storytime programs. We've added a new program, a new service called mobile print. So anyone, whether they have a library card or not, can submit print jobs directly to our print machines by using a smartphone, a home computer, or some portable device. And then we release the print jobs here and deliver them to their vehicles. And so you can see as you go down the list that the things that we were doing before the pandemic have continued, even though we don't have people coming in and doing hands-on browsing. Darren, do you want to forward to the annual report, please?
Sure.
Oh, this is a summary of the Jefferson County's funding for our library during my tenure. So when I first came on board, fiscal year 2004 to 5, the county's funding amounted to $67,000. It gradually increased to 72. Then it stepped down for a while, and for the most recent 5 years in a row, it was 67.5. This current year, it's dropped down to 60, and we're requesting reinstatement of the previous level of 67.5 for a lot of reasons. 60,000, you know, it's less than we were receiving more than 15 years ago. It doesn't take into account the costs of inflation and the services that people want from us. Next page. In the annual report, the big one that kind of jumps out at you is under services and commodities toward the bottom. Budget line 6310, building maintenance and repair. The HVAC system was original to the building, so it was 22 years old, and it was having lots of problems that necessitated expensive repairs. And this last year, we replaced the chiller and the humidifier and let's see, and the furnace, all three of them. And so that's why you see this $204,353 is because we replaced HVAC equipment. Now in this current year, we are asking for replacement of the old original Johnson Controls Metasys system because it doesn't play well with the new HVAC equipment. And so we're looking at about $38,000 to replace that control system. Next page, please. The Memorial Fund contributes money for library materials. Historically, we had a smaller budget for library materials and the collection was aging significantly. The gold standard for a public library is to have an average age of 5 years. And we had many titles that were 10 years or more that really should be replaced. And so we petitioned the city and the foundation and others, and we managed to turn some of that around. We're still working on upgrading the collection. You'll see that we've received grants from the library's Foundation for Library Materials in recent years. Please forward. Next page. The book sale fund is dwindling because we haven't been able to hold a book sale for a while. We have the inventory, but we haven't been able to do it. So when COVID goes away, that will hold a book sale and that will replenish funds that we need for adult and youth programs. That's how that money is mainly spent. Next page. The old fund that used to be called the endowment fund is now the capital fund. It has 84-cent balance for quite some time. It's not been replenished. Next page. The old library endowment fund continues to be invested in CDs at local banks. And the interest income on CDs, as you know, has declined in over the years. We're very fortunate to get 1.5 or 2%, whereas early in my tenure, we were at sometimes as high as 6.5%. So that has impacted our funding as well. Next page. This is a summary of all of our independent library funds and the rental house that's across the alley from the library. Next page. Now here you're looking at library collections, and we continue to weed and replenish to try to keep the collection current. And so this reflects the current state of each of those collections. Next page. This is where the rubber meets the road, where you're looking at actual usage of the library. And when you look in the middle under programs and traffic, it's just way at the top there, just about to disappear. You see that traffic in the building over on the right side was about 75% of what we had in the previous year. And yet when you look at total circulation down at the bottom, the total circulation was 84%. And so that reflects a lot of the work that we were doing for curbside deliveries. Curbside deliveries are a much more labor-intensive approach to library service. We're basically acting as personal shoppers and running out to vehicles 60 sometimes a day. But that's what it takes to keep things going right now. Interlibrary loans were at 90% of the previous years, and so on. We are offering free Wi-Fi service curbside from 8 in the morning until 10 in the evening, 7 days a week. And a lot of people are taking advantage of that. They're coming in and, you know, in next to the building with the nose of the vehicle pointed toward the building and getting on their cell phones and their laptops. We also have a new laptop lending program so that people can borrow computers and take them home if they need to, thanks to a grant from the Greater Jefferson County Foundation. Next page. Now, if you can rotate that, Darren, to...
No, I cannot, because it's in a PDF document that's oriented this direction. So
Okay.
this is the only view we're going to get of it.
Okay. So what I've done is I've approached Scott Dermont at the State Library for some data, and he provided what you're seeing here. And it's sorted 3 ways. This first page shows you the data sorted by rural valuation. And you'll see that even though Jefferson County is down toward the bottom, Mount Pleasant is at the very bottom.
There.
And there we go.
Yep.
Mount Pleasant's funding of their library is at 65,000, and we're below that. We're at 60. Next page, please. Here we're sorting the data per capita, and we're 4th from the bottom in terms of funding per capita. Next page, please. And now here, we're looking at total collection usage, and we're 3rd from the top. So the point I'm making here is that our library is very heavily used relative to other comparable libraries. When I say comparable, I'm saying that these cities listed on the left side are the ones that City Hall views as comparable to Fairfield for budgetary analysis. And we're ranking 3rd from the top in terms of usage, but we're way down toward the bottom in terms of county funding. And so our request is that you please reconsider the level of funding and restore us to where we were in the previous 5 years, if that's possible. And I think that, let's see, is that my last page?
That's the last page.
That's the last page. Okay. So I'm here for questions. And I think a couple of our trustees are here with us as well.
Any questions?
Kimberly Brose is the president of our library board, and she's in attendance here. And also Janine Parker is on our personnel committee. Okay.
Do you want to say, go ahead, Darren.
I was just going to say, I really don't have any questions about it right now. This is something that we're going to consider at our budget work sessions that we're coming up with. Currently, we've just turned in what our budget projections are for the first round. And we're going to start working on the entire county budget overall in the next week. So we don't have an answer today, as far as I'm concerned, as to what level we're looking at for funding.
Okay.
Thank you.
When you look at the services that we're providing, is there any gap, in your opinion, or anything that needs to be addressed by the library that isn't currently being addressed?
Not that I'm seeing.
Okay.
Thanks, Rebecca.
I want to thank you for your time and consideration, and stay safe and healthy.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca.
That's
Welcome.
that's a good segue into you, Chris. We have an update next from Chris Estel, Public Health.
Hey, good morning. I think I should turn back to my picture. Okay, so where do you guys want me to start? You want me to start with, I could go back 14 months.
No,
Want me to go back that far? Or I can start with vaccine and let you know where we're at with that. How about that? I'll start with vaccine. So I was sorry, I was just on my phone. I will say that Jefferson County received 500 doses of the Moderna vaccine, and I anticipate that's the vaccine that we will receive because at this current time, nobody has the ultra cold storage capacity. I know our health center is moving towards that, but at this point, and Johnny, maybe you could speak to that too, since you're on the hospital board. I don't think it's arrived yet. Their freezer, their ultra cold freezer. So we allocated 200 doses to the health center. We kept 200 doses here at the health department, and then we allocated 100 doses to one of the nursing homes. Now, the other nursing home and assisted living chose to go with the national pharmacy option. And so what that means is that they contracted with a pharmacy, and it's my understanding, according to the nursing home and assisted living, we talked to them last week. Well, we talk to them every day almost, but they should be getting their vaccine the week of January 25th. So the pharmacies will come in and go from start to finish. But the problem with the pharmacy contract is right now, half of the doses that the state of Iowa receives that are Pfizer doses, because that's what the pharmaceuticals, or that's what the pharmacies are receiving. So half of the doses that come into Iowa are held back or set aside for those long-term care pharmacy agreements. So what does that do to us at local public health? It creates kind of not a shortage, but it creates kind of a holding pattern because we can't move forward with our phase B and C until the national pharmacy program has met all of those requirements. Unlike H1N1, here's the bottom line. If those doses would have been allocated to local public health versus a national pharmacy program, they would have already had the doses and been done. Okay, it would have already been done. So, and Johnny's shaking her head. So I find this to be very cumbersome. I find it to be very frustrating. We had an emergency meeting Friday with the state to discuss the phases, and I'll go back to that. But as nurses, we know that it doesn't do any good to hold doses. You need to get them in the arms of people and then move forward. Okay, so for us, it's been a little bit of a frustration. It's not right, wrong, or otherwise, but it's just one more step of outsourcing local public health infrastructure. We've been doing emergency preparedness since post 9/11, and this is something that we know what to do, but we have to have the doses in order to open up our points of dispensing and to distribute medications, vaccinations appropriately. So I did just get an email this morning. We're supposed to be getting additional doses. I don't know for sure how many. So that's kind of where we're at with that. I know I talked to our hospital partners last week, our healthcare center partners, and they have done the majority of their staff. I don't want to speak for them, but they have moved forward and through their staff appropriately through their tiers internally. So that is great news. Let's see. I know that the one nursing home is partway done with their staff and residents. And you have to remember too, if somebody has had COVID-19, they encourage you to wait closer to that 90 days where your, what we perceive as your natural antibodies begin to wane a little bit. Because we know that people that have received the vaccine that have had COVID tend to have more, they tend to re-experience some of their COVID symptoms. I've not had COVID, knock on wood. I got my vaccine the week of Christmas, and I just had a sore arm, and it was kind of itchy, and it was a little sore like a tetanus shot. So that's where we're at with that. I know that the state of Iowa developed a new advisory committee. It's IDAC, which stands for Infectious Disease Advisory Council. And what they're doing is they're looking at when the whole state can move forward with phase B and C, phase 1B and 1C. Now we're ready to move forward, and we're doing vaccine clinics today for people that still meet that 1A criteria. I know that there have been a few school partners that have received the vaccine, and that was my decision. As a local public health administrator, I have that flexibility, or a health department. Once you open a vial of Moderna vaccine, there's 10 doses. Sometimes you can get 11, but usually you get 10. And all of that has to be administered within 6 hours. That is new for all of us. Usually when you open a multi-dose vial, you have 28 to 30 days to use everything out of that vial. So we can pull people in that would meet that next level of criteria versus throwing doses away. Does that make sense? I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you guys all at once, and I can talk pretty fast. So I pulled our Fairfield Community School District counselors in because, you know, one of them is not a teacher. He is a social worker by trade. So he automatically met criteria because he attends, counsels, and treats kids. So I pulled them in because they have a different level of, you know, exposure or close proximity to family members, et cetera. Plus they go into the home sometimes. So their responsibilities are a little different. So I looked at them as a healthcare provider. I know that caused some angst. I know it caused some angry feelings, but you know what? I'm trying to do the greater good with the doses that I have and not waste anything. And I know we've been working real close with the hospital. They call us, we call them. Hey, we've got 2 people. Can you do them? Do you have a vial open? And that's how it should be. So we're moving forward with that. The IDAC council meets this afternoon. I think it's at 2:30 to see how and when and what that's going to look like when they move forward to phase 1B and 1C. Like I said, we're ready, but we can't like move to all of that next level yet because we're still functioning under a vaccine shortage order. We're trying to divert some of the doses to, you know, like Johnson County, Lynn County, Polk County, because they have a significant number of healthcare providers, long-term care folks. We're lucky in Jefferson County. I mean, we have reached out to dentists, therapists, eye doctors, all of those people that would meet criteria for healthcare providers, where some local health departments haven't even been able to move through all those people yet that would meet that criteria. So we're fortunate in that area. Let's see. We continue to meet usually Thursdays for our County Emergency Operations Center meeting. We're going to go to every other week right now for that official meeting, but last week we included our school administrators and our school nurses, Pekin, MSAE, and Fairfield. We're trying to figure out what that's going to look like when it is open to the schools. When that next tier is open, what the plan is, and you know, plans are going to change, so I don't want to etch it in stone, but we will go to the schools and offer those vaccinations on site at the school. And what we'll do is we'll split half of that staff that meets criteria, or half the staff that wants to receive that vaccine 1 week, and then we'll come back and do the other staff the following week. So we'll go to all the schools 1 week, and then we'll come back and do the other people the next week. Because with this vaccine, they're recommending not all your staff get vaccinated on the same day in case you have a problem. Let's see. I just jotted down some notes right quick from the website. Let's see, our past 14-day average is 25% for the schools. And as a nurse, I honestly do not get hung up on percentages because there's so much more to this virus and to illness other than a point in time number. I know for the numbers, people of the world, that these numbers are like the gold standard, and a lot of decisions are based on these numbers. However, as a nurse, we know that there's a lot more illness circulating. Let's see, we have, I looked at the RMCC data, the hospital data for Region 5, which is what we're in. It looks like there's 96 people in ICU. That's down 8 from the day before. Admitted in the last 24 hours with COVID-19, it's 74, which is up 2 people. We have 1 long-term care facility that remains an outbreak. I know Kim's on here. She's on our school board. You know, Fairfield remains in the hybrid option. I don't know what else to say. That's a lot of information in a very short period of time. What else can I answer for you?
Any questions, anybody? Thanks, Chris.
No.
Chris, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'll be glad when we have enough vaccine and we can move to general pop. That's going to be months away. I know I've been watching the national news too, and it's a little unsettling. I know that there's been doses that have been held back for the second dose. There's, you know, and with the change of presidency, Biden's group is looking at it differently. They're not going to hold doses back. They're just going to offer it to everyone to start with, which I do agree with, because you got to get it in the arms of people. Vaccine doesn't protect people, vaccinations do. So, you know, we got to move forward and we got to get these doses done, and we've got to get some protection, and we've got to continue doing what we're doing. Those things don't go away, especially with influenza, RSV. I know we're going to have pertussis, you know, coming up. We always do. We haven't seen it yet. I don't know. It's been a long 14 months.
Hey, Chris?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen anything on when county employees would be eligible since they're public?
I think it would depend on what the disease advisory committee looks at, because I know that, you know, teachers, law enforcement, fire, funeral directors, veterinary medicine, all those people still have not been vaccinated. So, but then I think you're going to have those people, and then you're going to have the folks that are over a certain age that have comorbidities and that should meet criteria sooner. But if you're a healthy individual, you know, I don't anticipate that you're going to move up in the order of the phased approach. So, and I know it's going to change. I did see on the news last night, on the national news, where the state of New York was opening up vaccination clinics to everyone. And it's like, you got to remember, you got to have enough staff and you got to have enough supplies to administer how much vaccine you're going to have. And you got to have a location, and that's going to change too. I'm trying to not, I mean, I'm thinking 4 steps ahead of where we're currently at, but I don't want to lock anything in, because you don't know for sure what that's going to look like or when that's going to happen. And when the weather is nice versus like it is now, that's going to make a difference on options that we can use for vaccination sites. And there's a 15 to 30 minute wait post-injection. So we not only administer the injection, then you got to figure out how you're going to staff your people so you can watch them in case there's a problem. That's best practices with anything. I think that since this is a new vaccine, I think that scares people, but that's been best practices for years, to give somebody a vaccine or a shot of an antibiotic, and then you wait and you monitor them for potential side effects or anaphylaxis. So any questions, comments, or I'm gonna be quiet then if nobody has anything. You guys know how to find me if you need something. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, update board and committee assignments. So I did a little research on a couple of the committees we had questions about. So we do have a couple changes. 1015 Transit and RPA should be the same person because they basically meet back to back. So what I found out about what they are specifically, 1015 Transit is a 10 county area, and you know, that's the transit that we see in the counties. The RPA has to do with transportation, which is roads, bridges, and trails. So Susie, I know you were on 1015 transit. Do you also want to do RPA then?
If you would like me to do that, I will do that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do
Steve?
that. What?
This is Abby.
Yes.
So Lee was talking to me, you know, he was on all of these, the 1015 and the RPA and SERG.
Right.
He was just mentioning that all 4 of them meet in the same building or roughly the same building. I think 2 of them are the same building, but they're one's like 9:15, one's 10:15, and one's 11:30, all in Ottumwa on that 4th Thursday. So I just thought I would pass that along since he's not on today or around.
Okay, thanks. Because I did talk to Chris Bowers, who does all those committees, and he didn't mention that at all, but he might have been looking at that differently. So given that, yeah, because Chris did say that 1015 Transit and RPA met back to back, and that is 4th Thursday on our schedule. And then SERG is every other month. And I know, Darren, you had voiced some opinion about wanting to do that.
If this is one of those things where they all meet one right after another on the same day, I think the same person ought to have all 3 of those. So I would say that Susie, you could do that one as well. So put Drish down as the person to attend the meetings, and then I can go to second alternative
Okay.
or alternate.
Susie, does that work for you?
Oh, sure.
Okay. And then one correction, Abby, we had Susie down for Masden Barnes instead of me. And that was one of those things from last year or last week. It probably was just a matter of not repeating it loud enough on my part.
So then it's going to be Sandquist, Hamilton is first alternate, and Drish is second alternate, or do you want me to go to second alternate?
No, Drish would be the member. Are you talking Masden Barnes?
Right. It would be Susie would be the member.
Yeah.
Then I was at first alternate.
I can go to second alternate.
Okay. All right. We'll just do that.
Okay.
So just to clarify on that one, Masden Barnes should be Susie.
Correct.
And you'll be the second
Yes.
alternate. All right. Thank you.
Did either of you have any other changes? Those are the ones that I was able to find out.
No, I'm good with the way they are right now. Susie?
I'm good.
Okay.
Hey, Darren and I were talking last week about the service agency.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought we had 2 members on that rather than a member and then a first and second alternate.
So did I, and I asked about that, and then somebody said, no, it's just one. So what is it? Is it 2, Pat?
I'm not going to swear to that, but I know at all service agency meetings I've ever been to, there are 2 members of the city council, 2 members of the board of supervisors, and 1 member of the public.
Okay, well,
the reason I brought it up is that there is a bank account that's associated with it, and it needs to have 2 signatories for that account. The ones that were signatories were Lee Dimmitt and Steve Bergmeyer. So one has not been updated for quite some time. And I had went in to try to get myself set up in Lee's place, but I need to have a meeting of the service agency to come together and put into their minutes that Lee is no longer a member of the county supervisors board, and will also do the same at the same time for Steve Bergmeyer, who would be not a member of the board. And then we would replace that with the 2 members that Pat and I were talking about, myself being one, and then someone as a second on that. And right now you're shown as the second on that, D.
yeah, I can do that.
Okay, and that's at the First National Bank, but none of that can take place until we either get some notification from the service agency itself or a record of minutes in which it was discussed and those two members were removed because they're no longer members of the Board of Supervisors.
So do we need to get a meeting set up then, a virtual meeting with that group?
Yes, that's going to be a necessity. So we'll have to talk to, I believe it's Tammy Jones, who is the secretary of that board right now, to see what we can get set up.
Do you want me to talk to her?
Yeah, if you would, please.
Okay. All righty. Anything else on this?
Not on committees. Thank
Okay. Next item on our agenda, discuss and consider step increase for sheriff and newly appointed chief deputy. Pat, correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like whenever we have new elected officials, this is a standard procedure. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, I saw that you and I talked a little bit about it and saw that it said as a step increase. And I don't know that it's a step increase. It's particularly for the elected officials, it's a statutory created process to set the salary, and then through the compensation board and then the supervisors, that amount is set. I mean, as an example, you didn't have to go in and pick or choose a salary for Susie. When she took over, she gets the salary that a supervisor gets, just like the newly elected sheriff will get the salary that the sheriff gets. I wouldn't call it a step increase. I think I would call it correcting the you're updating your records, because obviously you have to have a record of what you're paying your people each month and why you're paying them that. But
our whereas section that says, whereas Jefferson County Sheriff desires to step increase the salaries of himself and his newly appointed chief deputy, therefore needs to be reworded.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't call it a step increase. A step increase suggests
right, but the document would have to be revised before it can be signed by any of the supervisors. If that's a change that needs to be made.
Sure. I mean, I haven't seen a resolution. So if that's what it says, you know, you can cross it out or change it or do whatever. I would just indicate that you have two new people in existing positions, and they should receive the salary that has been established during this fiscal year for those positions.
Okay, so we could just change it to, whereas Jefferson County Sheriff desires to increase the salaries of himself and his newly appointed chief deputy.
I wouldn't say increase.
Moving this word step.
I wouldn't say increase. They're not increasing the salary of the sheriff. The sheriff's salary is the same as it always has been. It's just a new person who is the sheriff.
Okay.
So Abby, do we need to have this done before the 15th, or can we reword this and bring this back next Monday?
I believe the sheriff's office is a pay period behind us. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I've heard talk about them being behind a pay period. I don't know.
Well,
I'm assuming it can probably wait.
That was my assumption. Dee, is that okay if we just go ahead and move this to our next meeting once the wording has been changed to something better than we currently have in front of us?
Abby, do you have an electronic copy of this that you can get to Pat to review and make suggestions?
I do not. This came from the sheriff's office, just directly like it is to us.
Okay.
But I can reach out to Michelle and see if she can either send it to me or Pat if she has his email.
Let me ask you guys this question. what paperwork was done to set Susie's salary? I mean, I'm not sure we need to do a whole lot of anything.
She went into Melissa.
Right.
This just came to us. I didn't ask them to do this paperwork.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that the paperwork is required in order to do the payment. I mean, paperwork.
Wouldn't it be required just on Chief Deputy Marcellus? Because he's actually the one that's getting promoted here. It would be a promotion for him to go from where his current salary is to the new salary of Chief Deputy.
And his title.
Correct. You're correct in that regard, but it's still not an increase for the position, right? It's just a person filling a position that already exists, that already has a pay structure.
Right, which would be a promotion.
Hey, Pat, this is Susie. In Jerry Marcellus's case, they can receive up to 85% of the sheriff's salary. In some cases, you wouldn't have to do that. So maybe we need to be very clear and concise how we're doing this.
Right, but it's already been done for this fiscal year.
Okay. So then all we have to say is effective so-and-so, effective on this date, these two folks will receive the salary of this.
Right, that as of January 1st or January 2nd or whatever, that Bart Richmond has taken the office of sheriff, and Jerry Marcellus was, I hesitate to use the term promoted because that's an appointed position. It's not a test position, and promotion has a specific connotation in the emergency management, law enforcement arena.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But has been appointed, and that they should receive the salaries that have been set for those positions for this fiscal year.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess D, I would propose, or
I mean, I think you just make that you can just make that motion. I don't think it has to be in writing.
well, that's what I was just going to do is ask if I could make a motion in order to move Bart Richmond to the salary of Sheriff of Jefferson County and move Jerry Marcellus to salary of Chief Deputy of Jefferson County
Okay, I'll
to
second
the
that.
full pay scale requested.
Okay. I'll second it.
Okay.
Discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Pat. Discuss and consider access control upgrade. Darren.
Yeah, this concerns our courtroom and courtroom level here at the courthouse. We currently have an electronic locking system for those doors on the second floor in that area, and the computer system has failed on it after 10 years of use. There is an upgrade that's being proposed because we have to change what's going on. Currently, the doors to the courtroom itself are usually left unlocked while court is being run, and there is an automatic locking system. If something happens, a button can be pressed and the doors can be locked. Otherwise, they would be open during the hours that there's actually court going on. Right now, we can't control it that way. They sporadically lock and unlock on their own, which has been a major problem for the court up there for the last year. But since we haven't had court as much or as often because of COVID, we haven't had to experience a lot of inconvenience from it. But I asked that a courthouse security meeting be held, and that meeting includes the city police department, the county sheriff's department, the judges that are assigned here to the building, the clerk of court that's assigned here to the building, our building maintenance supervisor, also the county assessor's office, and the 911 dispatch office. We had everyone in attendance. The county attorney sat in with us as well for that meeting, and the recommendation from the committee was to go with Convergent Technologies, who have our current system up there, and have them bring in a new system to the facility and install it. And that would be a total cost of their estimate is $5,700.05. Because we are under the guidelines of not having to put this out for a public bid process, I would recommend that we go ahead and see if we can't find $5,700 and a nickel in our budget somewhere for this year so that we can go ahead and make these changes. Court is going to go back into session starting after the 1st of February sometime. So we're going to start getting back in for a necessity for this. It'll take approximately 5 to 10 weeks to get all of the upgrade done and installation taken care of. This is what the committee feels that we should move forward with at this time.
Okay, so do we need
I would need a motion for myself to go ahead and contact Convergent and agree to the estimate that was sent to us and start to schedule the work so that we can have it done as quickly as possible.
Okay, I'll make the motion for that.
Yeah. I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? I just want to point out that this is required. The county's required to provide space, and this would be part of that for the court system. So it's one of those things we need to do.
Right. Overall, courthouse security is going to be looked at within the next 2 years. There are some changes that need to be made here on the building itself. Door locks being a minimum change, because currently we're making copies of keys that unlock the main entrances and exits to the courthouse here, and we have no idea who has them or how long they've been out there or anything like that. And so we will be looking at changing door locks and having a new key set up so that the keys are not duplicable, or they have to be also signed for by the person that holds the key and would be returning the key at the time they end their employment here or at the time they are no longer serving an elected office. So we have better control over what happens with the keys to this building.
And that's part of our plan that we have in place regarding
that's
the
part of
courthouse.
our 5-year plan that I've been trying to put into place as far as what's needed here at the courthouse, because we've never had something like that in the past. We've always done stuff reactionary, like we are with this Convergent technology with the door locking system on the courtroom floor. And that's no way to really operate when it comes to the facility.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, make committee reports.
I went to, or excuse me, I was on virtually with the DCAT board. Susie will be taking over for me on that board, but for the time being, I have been elected as vice chair of that board. Susie will take over in that position when she's available to do that. This was something that they needed to have in place this first meeting in January so that we know who is going to be on that board. Dale House from Van Buren County is the chairman of the board from their board of supervisors. And so he's agreed to be able to do that for the next year's time period. And it's been good. I was on the board. It is a good board. They do a lot of things, especially when it comes to aiding citizens with problems with foster care and programs in order to make parents better parents than what they've been currently classified as, and programs that help children deal with mental and different issues that they have, and also the court systems for children and families. So it's a pretty big job. It's a big responsibility, but I think Susie's going to be able to take over on that fairly easily from me, and I think it's a better fit for her than it is for myself.
Susie, anything to report?
No, I do not.
Okay. My committee's been working on this emergency management services project. And so I thank everybody involved with that. It's been very good to have input from several members on that and the public. Okay, do we have any public comments?
We have several members of the public that are on with us today. If there's someone that wants to make a comment, this is the time you can unmute yourself. I'm going to send a request to Debbie to ask her to unmute herself if she has a comment that she would like to make. I'm not seeing anybody.
I actually was just
Oh,
listening. I don't want to make a comment. I was just listening.
okay. I just
Attending.
wanted to make sure you had an opportunity because I knew that you had made a special request to be able to get on.
Yeah, I
didn't
watched.
have the
That's-
agenda. So.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments?
Not sure about it being a public comment, but I forgot to mention that Randy Atwood's last day was Friday, so he's retired now from the department.
Well, congratulations to Randy.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Hey Dee, I just want to make sure, this is Chris, you guys. I just want to make sure that everybody understands when we move to the next phase, excuse me, for vaccination allocation or, clinics, that information will be shared publicly. I'll do it on Facebook with the news media, however we can get the word out. So I know that, our older population is very concerned and very worried about that. And they want to call and put their names on a list. And that's just, it's really not, we're just not able to manage that because that responsibility has to lie with that individual when they meet criteria versus that responsibility being shifted to us. And then we have to find the list and call everybody back. So, but I appreciate everybody's support. And I guess that's it, just ongoing support in this pandemic. It's been an experience. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So thank you.
And when that happens, let us know so you can either attend or we'll share the information too via the meeting.
Absolutely, I will. And sometimes we feel like we share different information 3 or 4 times a day, and unfortunately stuff changes, or fortunately stuff changes. And I think that's what's created a lot of, worried feelings and stress, and none of us know for sure. So I think that we just got to keep saying the same message, and hopefully that'll help. So
Okay, any other comments? All right, moving on, allow claims and approve reports.
So moved. You want a
Second?
I second that.
Okay, Susie seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, discuss and consider nuisance properties.
We just have a bid that came through for a particular property cleanup. It's fairly substantial. We're going to have to discuss this a little more to try to find out where we can come up with the money in order to pay for it. This particular cleanup is on 1658 Old Highway 34. And the total amount for the cleanup itself is estimated at $30,000 at this point. So this is one of the major people that are on our cleanup list. This is a lot more substantial than what the previous two were that we just completed, the one in Abingdon and the one in Limby. And we need to put some thought into where the money is going to come from to pay for these as they're being done. And I know that people in the county want to see these properties cleaned up, and the owners of the properties have just not made any real attempts ever to try to clean them up. And so that's the position that we're in. But this is a very substantial amount of money for this type of work.
Yeah, and as we continue our work on the budget for next year, we're really going to have to list a level and say, hey, we can afford this much to clean up, and just figure that out, what it is.
Yeah, because this is, like I said, is only the first 3 on the list of 10 that we figured were the top 10 offenders here in the county. So if this is what we're looking at, between $15,000 and $30,000 to do these cleanups on a 1-by-1 situation, that's a substantial amount of money for the taxpayers in order to clean up someone else's mess.
And Pat, I know you're still on. We've had some brief conversations about how we're going to work with the people that own the land to recoup the money. Can we talk about some ideas now on that?
Yeah. So there's a statute. The last time we spoke, there was talk about how the city had done sort of a 10-year payback when they did the sidewalk requirements a number of years ago. And I found the statutory authorization for that. And without looking at it right now, I don't know if it says, I think it says up to 10 years. So I think it allows you to say, hey, we'll allow this payback to occur over a period of time less than 10 years, but no more than 10 years. And it would be, put on their, as a special assessment on their taxes. So for example, if it was a $10,000 bill and we spread it out over 10 years, it would be $1,000 special assessment every year for 10 years. Or it could be $2,000 every year for 5 years, potentially. I'm not going to swear to that right now, but I think that type of thing is allowed. And so that's one option. Of course, another option is, send them the bill and then allow for some sort of a staggered payment type plan like we do with folks with outstanding court fines. And so long as they're meeting their obligation every month, not turn it into special assessment, and then still have that special assessment opportunity available if they default on the initial payments. I think you have a handful of options here in terms of how you want to recoup it. The bigger issue that I've heard as I've been speaking with you all sort of individually is that, the rate of recoupment as compared to the cost of the moving on to the next project, they don't match up, right? If we're getting $10,000 back over the course of 10 years, certainly getting $10,000 back in the course of 1 year makes it easier to budget and move on and clean up the next property. 10 years doesn't give you that opportunity in the same way. So
the concern that I express in this all along is that this isn't an attempt to try to have someone forfeit their property. We want to try to keep people living where they're at and in their homes and not trying to put them out on the street. But we also have to look at the fact that the contractor is going to want to be paid for their work after it's completed. And so it's that time period between when we actually have to put the money up front and then the return back over that time period afterwards. The county is still on the hook initially for it, but yes, it will be some time before that money comes back into the county's till. So, you know, that's the hardest part for me as a supervisor to look at, because I know that some of these people have been paying their fines just like they're supposed to from the court, and the court had ordered them to go ahead and clean up and to take that fine, but there's been no actual teeth to be able to follow up to make sure that they're cleaning up. And I think in the past that the supervisors as a whole had been a little bit more lenient, just from the standpoint that they were worried that they were going to burden someone that doesn't have the financial means to pay what they have to pay right now, let alone adding something on top of that. And you know, I have kind of a big heart when it comes to that. I would prefer I was a little more thick-skinned, but you know, we have to actually look at these people's livelihoods and the fact that they've gotten into a situation where they need some help to get out of it. The help can only come in a form of the county residents actually paying and coming collectively to do that, but they expect their money back. So, you know, we need to do something to get this done. And again, this was one property that is a very large cleanup. They did clean some stuff up, then they brought back in more from what they had before. We were recently told that they had taken 16 vehicles off of the property, but in the times that myself and the Russ inspection people have been out there, there's really no way to actually look at the piles and say, yeah, that's been reduced. It just isn't. And again, there's more stuff being brought out there all the time. And it's in a very open and obvious location, and that's why there were so many complaints on it.
So, I mean, Dee, I can put together a proposal based on the statute, or if you want to try to manage it like we do collecting court fines. I don't know what route you want to go in terms of what you want me to prepare.
If it's a special assessment on the taxes, does that put their home at risk of losing then if they don't pay it?
Right, it's just like any other tax. You've got to pay the tax every year, or if not, it becomes eligible for tax sale.
And I know that's not our intent. So if we took that same, let's use your $10,000 example, and took $1,000 and divided it by 12 months, would that be the other way to do that then, just as a payment plan? And then what happens if they miss a payment?
Then you would put the entire amount on for assessment.
Oh, okay. So it's like part one, then part two if part one doesn't work.
Right.
I guess I like that plan better. I'm concerned that many of these people, if they couldn't afford to clean their place up in the first place, by adding a special assessment, that could be risky if our goal's to keep them in their homes. I'm also concerned that some of these people in 10 years will probably have it just as junky as it is before it's cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the flip side of that is that, you know, some of these properties we're talking about, I know the one that Darren has been talking about with the new estimates, is a property that had gone up for tax sale without any assessments on it, and the owner was highly incentivized to redeem that and keep the property, and so and was able to do so. So you know, I know in one regard it is you know, it's risk reward, and the risk is a significant risk that you have all expressed that you really don't want to put people up against. But the same situation is that you're trying to find something that incentivizes folks, and at least in that circumstance, the tax bill is what incentivized that property owner, and really nothing else that we've tried has. So I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other on this, and it's not my decision, but it's just anecdotal in terms of where we are and how we got here.
Right. We had a question that came through chat. Could we put a tall fence up? Part of the problem with some of these nuisances is health and safety. So a tall fence would not help with that category. It would help.
That has been a mitigation strategy at some locations, depending on the type of nuisance and those types of things. That has been suggested, but it's not a one size fits all solution.
Right. Well, given that, I'm asking for board input here, but I agree, because I've been involved with this for 4 years now, and we're finally getting the system to work. And every time we hit a new barrier, it's kind of like, okay, we need to figure this out and see the system through. So given that, and given the fact that I know very well that if we try to set up payment plans, I would say more times than not, based on some past interactions with some of these early on, that people are not going to be incentivized. So for that reason, I'm leaning towards a special assessment on the taxes.
That's my feeling on this completely, is that it should be a special assessment on the taxes rather than trying to work out a program and then find out that they cannot pay on it through that program and then have to assess it to the taxes anyway. We should just probably do that right up front. And then it is the responsibility on that property owner to pay those taxes. And it is up to them as to whether their house or property goes to a tax sale or not. It isn't something that we are doing in that case. That's something that they've taken full responsibility for. So.
Okay, Susie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I do agree with you, Dee. Not only does this concern me, but we really need to look forward with this. We cannot go backward.
Okay. Given that, Pat, could you draw something up for us to look at?
Yes, I will do that. And I want to give you some positive spin on this. I have a couple of nuisance cases scheduled for court hearings this week. One of them is going to be dismissed because the person has successfully mitigated the nuisance. It's probably the second or third one I've dismissed in the last month. We kind of started with the most obvious situations, and those are the most problematic, and those are the ones that now we're looking at, hey, what's the cleanup cost? As we've transitioned to sort of the next tier of folks, we're getting a lot more compliance, is my sort of anecdotal statement. And so I wanted to make sure you had that information too.
Well, that's helpful to know. And I do know we have succeeded in getting several properties cleaned up. It's just, we always end up circling back to the problematic ones. So appreciate your help with this, Pat. Okay, any other comments on this regard? Motion adjourned.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks everybody.
Also a reminder before we go, we have budget work session at 9 a.m. on January 13th, Wednesday.
Yep.
So we'll be here at the courthouse for that.
Hey, Darren, any of those papers I need to sign before
Yes,
Wednesday?
there are some papers here at the office you need to sign. And I've
Before
laid those
Wednesday?
on your desk already, so.
Okay, because I did some for Scott last week.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just trying to social distance.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.